Welcome to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast, Achieving Peace Through Compassion. This podcast is a recording of the Dharma Talks given during our Sunday service.
Today, the topic of my Dharma Talk the title of my Dharma Talk is Shantideva Had No Friends. And I'm going to tell a story because I think telling stories is fun. So this is the story of an historical figure named Shantideva. But first, I'm going to read to you this teaching that's called the Shantideva Prayer. And we sometimes read this when there's vows happening at the Rime Center and things like that. And what this is, I know prayer may be a loaded term for many people. This is like intention setting. We're reciting this to sort of orient our hearts toward positivity, toward wanting good in the world. That's what it's about. It's intention setting. It's heart orienting. It's not prayer in the sense of, hey, please, let's make this happen, please. But more, it's prayer in the sense of adjusting my own heart. Okay, so the Shantideva prayer. I've really built it up, huh? It goes like this. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. So I really like that. It's so positive and uplifting, right? May those weak with sorrow find joy. I really like that. So Shantideva, who we're going to talk about today, he was a monk and he lived in the late 7th or early 8th century, unclear, but a couple hundred years after the Buddha. That's what's important. And he lived in India, and he lived in this great monastery called Nalanda, which was a teaching center. And he lived there with 1,000 other monks. And he developed this reputation because he didn't hang out with the other monks. So they would get together and hang out and talk about the teachings and stuff. And he didn't do any of that. He just kept to himself. And some of the other monks started to judge him. And, we may not think that Buddhist monks can be bullies, but they're still people. There's still people. There's bullies everywhere. So they started to think that Shantideva was, because he didn't hang out with them, they started to think he was either somebody who thought he was better than everybody, or that he was just in the monastery, not really for Buddhism, but just to get 3 hots in a cot, just to have a place to live and not have to work. I think being a monk is work, but they started to think this Shantideva, he's lazy. He's not even doing this stuff. He's not even practicing Buddhism at all. So they came up with this idea. They started to just be really irritated with him. So they came up with this idea, we're going to get Shantideva to leave. That's what they thought. They thought, we're going to get him to leave, and this is how we're going to do it. They went to the head of the monastery and they said, hey, you should have Shantideva get on the high throne and give a teaching. You should have Shantideva get on the high throne and give a teaching. And so what these monks thought was, Shantideva would maybe be so afraid to give a teaching that he would just leave, or that he would get up there to give a teaching, and he would be so humiliated that he would leave. Because they certainly did not think Shantideva, this guy that never talks to anybody, is going to give a teaching. They did not think that. They thought he would not. So they convinced the head monk to ask Shantideva to give a teaching, and Shantideva did agree to give a teaching. So they almost didn't even expect him to get up on that stage, but he did. They kind of thought, he was going to do what I call the French exit, which is what I like to do, which is where if you're at a social thing and you just leave, you're just gone, right? You don't say the opposite of the Midwest exit, which is where you spend half an hour saying goodbye, right? The opposite of that, you just leave. I don't know if it's okay to say French exit. Is that a offensive term? I don't know. So I'm going to start calling it Shantideva's exit and see if we can get that to take off. I don't know if we can though. But so they were thinking he was going to just disappear, but he didn't. He got up on that stage in front of 1,000 people and he says, "Do you want me to talk about a teaching you've had before? Or do you want me to give you an entirely new teaching?" And so these monks, they're surprised. They're surprised he's even up there, and they're surprised he's saying that. I sort of think that they were thinking this was going to be like Carrie at the prom. Do you guys know that reference? Carrie at the prom. A girl in high school gets bullied in the way that they manipulate events to make her the prom queen, and then really bad stuff happens. But so I think that's kind of the idea they had in their head, that they were manipulating events to get him up there and he was going to just be horrendously humiliated. But he just stepped into his power and he spoke with confidence and he said, "Do you want to hear an all new teaching?" And so they're surprised, but they say, "Yes, give us an all new teaching." So he recites this teaching that today we call it the way of the Bodhisattva. And it is a foundational teaching in all the branches of Tibetan Buddhism and throughout many branches of Mahayana Buddhism. It is a beloved and respected teaching. And so he recites this teaching, and this thing I'm going to do is really brave. I'm going to turn to a random page from this way of the Bodhisattva that I have here, and I'm going to read it to you at random, because this text is so wonderful that I believe I can turn to a random page and come to a meaningful quotation. Okay, so here we go. It's really brave again. Actually cheating. Okay. So this is the chapter on transcendent patience. Shantideva says, "One moment's anger shatters all good acts accumulated in 1,000 eons, such as giving or offering to the Buddhas. There is no misdeed like hatred, no austerity like patience, so cultivate assiduously patience in various ways. When pangs of hatred clutch the mind, it does not feel any peace, no joy, no comfort, and no sleep. No constancy can be had. Even though he has shown them favor with riches and respect, dependents will confront and kill a master filled with hate." It's pretty good, right? I think so. So that's the chapter on patience. But he goes through all the great virtues, all the great things that we want to practice are here. And sometimes people that don't know anything will ask, is there a Bible in Buddhism? And there's not, but I think Way of the Bodhisattva, I think, is that kind of text. It's the kind of text that I can go to again and again. So anyway, where were we? Okay, so Shantideva is reciting this great teaching in front of everybody, and they are taken aback. They're completely surprised because they're moved. They're moved and inspired. And they all suddenly have a new favorite teaching, and it came from this guy Shantideva that they did not even like, right? So the way the story gets told is that towards the end, and it's long, it's kind of long, so he's talking a long time, way longer than I'm going to talk today. And the story, the way it gets told is that as he was coming to the end of it, he levitated and floated away and was gone. I'm not crazy about that that kind of thing. And there's another version I've heard where like a rope appears, like the magician's trick, like a rope to nowhere. It's hanging from nothing and he climbs up it and he's gone. I've heard that version too. I like to think that like everybody's in front of the stage and he's on the stage and he just, does Shantideva's exit. He just backs up and gets out of there that way, which is not where the people are. That's what I like to think. But Shantideva's gone, and suddenly these guys that didn't like him, right? He was universally not liked just because he didn't socialize. These guys that didn't like him, they want him to come back now, right? Suddenly they want to be Shantideva's friends because he's so wise. And I envision it being kind of like when I was a kid and I got Super Mario Brothers 3. I was the first kid in the neighborhood to get that. And suddenly like I had friends, right? I like to think of it that way. So like suddenly Shantideva can benefit them with these teachings. So they want him back. So they went and searched for him. And the story goes that somebody did find him and they were like, "Hey, Shantideva, will you come back?" And he was like, "No, I'm good. No, thanks." But he shared with them that in his room in the monastery, he had hidden three books of teachings, one of which was the written version of Way of the Bodhisattva, which is a good thing because, they just heard it once and they were trying to remember it. And then 2 other ones, a short teaching, a middle teaching, and a long teaching. Way of the Bodhisattva is the middle one. And I haven't read the other 2 because there's only one translation out there that I've found. I'm going to, though. But they couldn't get him to come back. And we don't know what happened to Shantideva after that. But I think he manifested in this story some really good qualities. So one is equanimity. That is, like, I don't think these bullies were like knocking books out of his hands in the hall or anything, but like he could feel it. I'm sure that nobody liked him. He had no friends. He could feel it, I'm sure. So, but he had equanimity. He was okay, I think. And then also he manifested bodhicitta, what we call the heart of great compassion, because he knew they were trying to set him up and he could have, again, just done Shantideva's exit and just left, but he decided to share the wisdom he had anyway, instead of just leaving. He could have just, sometimes if people are rude to you, you want to just leave. You don't want to share what you can, but Shantideva was better than that. He was better than me. So he really wanted to share this great and positive teaching. He knew he had a song in his heart that was worth sharing, that was going to change the world. So he did. That's the story of Shantideva and how he had no friends. And I hope this talk has been helpful. I love you all.
Thank you for listening to the Rime Buddhist Center's Dharma Talk podcast. Music was provided by Barefoot Brand Music. Please consider supporting the Rime Buddhist Center by making a donation at our website at www.rimecenter.org/donate.